The No Nonsense Roundtable. It's a weekly show broadcast on Rochester, New York's 50,000-watt iHeart radio station, News Radio Wham 1180. The host, Dom Genova, interviews guests from all walks of life, all with amazing stories to tell. What you are about to hear is a recording of a previous broadcast without the breaks and commercials. Now, here's host Dom Genova.
Well, welcome everybody to another edition of the No Nonsense Roundtable. My name's Dom Genova, as you know by now, and we're on Wham 1180, News Radio Wham 1180, every Saturday at 10 o'clock, but also all the shows are on NoNonsenseRoundtable.com. So today I have somebody on the show that you probably don't know, but you probably should know, and he's in the music business, a guitarist, and when we start talking about the work that he's done, I think you'll be duly impressed. His name is Rick Veto. How you doing, Rick?
I'm great. How are you today?
Good. You know, I was introduced or directed to you from a good friend of mine, John Veto, here in Rochester, and he said, well, you know, Rick Veto, he played for Fleetwood Mac there for a while. He says, but, you know, that's not the most interesting thing about Rick Veto. And I think you play Fleetwood Mac, and that's not the most interesting thing. So I'm looking forward to this interview. It's got to be extraordinary. Well,
most people know me as a former member of Fleetwood Mac. So, and that could be millions of people for all I know. It always amazes me when I get either letters or emails or, things posted on social media that people are aware of things that I've done through the years. I mean, it's been over 50 years that I've been professional. So, it's always surprising.
Yeah, you get known for something. I'm a baseball fan. Like Bucky Dent is known for one home run, so you never know.
Right.
Now, Rick, one of the things I like to talk about when I talk about my guests, some people have had straight paths in their lives, and some people have had they kind of turn and maybe have a crooked path, not a crooked life, but a crooked path. And I find that most musicians started very, very young and they want to be a musician. Was it like that for you?
Well, yes and no. I started playing music, playing the guitar in the late 50s. My mother had she had for a short while played the acoustic Hawaiian guitar as a girl when Hawaiian music was popular. So we had that guitar in the house. And then when all the rock and rollers like Elvis and so on started coming out, I'd get that guitar and be banging around on it. And my mother noticed it and she got me lessons. So I started taking lessons for a while, but I was a very poor student. I didn't know that I'd be doing it professionally actually until I was till I turned 21.
Really?
I had been playing semi-professional. And then I had an encounter with a professional group called Delaney and Bonnie and Friends, who had Eric Clapton playing with them back in like 1970 or so. And I sat in with them, and it was one of those bringing the house down moments, and they encouraged me to moved to Los Angeles to get in the music business, and that's what I did.
It's kind of unusual to have somebody like 21 years old. I mean, you hear about kids being 16, 17, sneaking into the club to play when they were underage and they couldn't even get a drink.
Yeah, well, I've been playing in bars and clubs and frat parties and the whole gamut of gigs, but it was, I was still in school and not doing it full-time professionally. I was probably good enough to do it full-time professionally, but I didn't know where my life was actually going to take me. And then there came that path. It was very clear cut, and that all happened sort of just as fate would have it.
Yeah, and we're going to be heading into a break in a second or two, believe it or not.
Sure.
But here, it's you played with Todd Rundgren, Derek and the Dominoes, Bob Seger's, you played the slide guitar on Like a Rock, which is, I mean, everybody knows that song.
That's my Bucky Dent home run.
That's your Bucky Dent. Well, we're going to be talking about that later because you're going to explain rasiduals to us, okay? He's a longstanding member of Bonnie Raitt. I love Bonnie Raitt. Recorded performed with John Mayall, Jackson Brown, Little Richard, Roy Orbison, John Fogerty, Stevie Nicks, Dolly Parton, Maria Muldaur, Midnight in the Oasis, right? Bob Seger, and many others. And you have 10 CD releases yourself. Well, this is at least what the Wikipedia page says.
It's true.
So let's get back to a little bit about basics. Where are you originally from?
I'm from the Northeast, the Philadelphia area.
Okay, so you understand Northeast and Northeast weather and whatever. And now,
Sure.
How much of your time is spent touring now?
Not a whole lot right now.
Mm-hmm.
When you do it for 50 years, you start to realize there's a certain way to travel that's acceptable when you get to be around my age, and there's a certain way to traveling and such that's not acceptable. And right now, there's such a volume of people out there trying to make it, touring, and kids that are will tour relentlessly. When I was younger, I loved to be out there, but right now, I've done it so often, for so long that it sort of lost a lot of that flavor for me. So I don't. Now, having said all that, I have a new record coming out called Cadillac Man, and if that starts to do well, then I'll look to do more live shows. But we'll see what happens.
What is the most fun thing you've done? I mean, anything. It doesn't even have to be music. I mean, just what's the most, when you look back and you go, wow, I wish it would have lasted. That was really a great night or whatever. I mean, what in your life do you look back on and you go, wow?
I'd have to say that the most fun I've ever had playing, and it wasn't one night, but it usually took place in small clubs here or there. Whatever, where the pressure's off, you're just really connecting with your music and your guitar, and the crowd is there with you. Yeah. And those moments, I mean, if I could go out every night and do that, I'd be the happiest man on earth. Yeah.
I was saying before we started recording that Bobby Rush was in town. And he's 90 years old. He just won another Grammy. He's 90 years old.
Yeah, he has a relentless energy.
He really does. And we're in this club. It's in Lima, New York. It's just around the corner from here. And it has 100 seats. That's all it is. 100 seats and a table. It's a fellow by the name of Jim Shelley's got a place, and he gets these gigs in, like, mainly during the week when they're going between here and there. And Bobby's there. He's 90 years old, and he's working the crowd, and he's playing, and he's joking with people and teasing with people, and we're having a beer afterward. He goes, "Yeah, I'm pretty good, aren't I?" Yeah, I go, "Yeah, you really are." He goes, "You see that guy over there that was a real pain in the tuchus?" I go, "Yeah." He says, "Yeah, that's why I go and talk to that guy first, because if I can get him on my side, then the rest of the crowd will come along with him." And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's 90 years old and he's pumping the crowd. He's having a good time,
That's what you call a total pro.
All right. Well, we're going to talk more about this, right after this message. This portion of the show is brought to you by Martinizing Dry Cleaners in Fairport. During COVID days, I discovered a dry cleaner that would pick up and deliver. I discovered Martinizing in Fairport. I later discovered that the owner, Todd, was an ex-corporate employee who went on to start his own business just like I did, and his customer service is beyond compare. Google rating 4.9 with 143 reviews. 4.9. Call 425-4242 or martinizing.com/Fairport. This is Dom from our good friends at the McClurg Auto Group in Perry. I called on probably 450 dealers when I was a Chrysler rep. I was always impressed with dealerships where the dealer himself cared about his customers, gave you a great deal, and was there if you needed him. John McClurg is one of those guys. You're closer than you think to a great no-nonsense deal. It's right in front of you. McClurgChevy.com or McClurg ChryslerDodgeJeep.com. Visit him today. Welcome back, everybody. We're talking to Rick Veto, who's had a wonderfully, well, I would say a varied life in the music business of being a guitarist. Now, on the one song here, this is the Bucky Dent moment we were saying, the one big thing that everybody remembers is Like a Rock. That Chevy commercial was made from the Bob Seger song. And Bob Seger's music is wonderful. I mean, there's so many. I think he's one of those guys. A lot of people know the music, but they don't know it's him. You know, it just needs a little bit more. I feel that way about the Rascals. A lot of people don't know that the Rascals music is the Rascals music. But the Chevy truck TV commercial. Let me ask you about that. Now, when you guys did that, did you know right away after you finished the song, you went, "Yeah, that's gonna be big"?
No. In a word, no. It's just another session. Come in, meet Bob, shake hands, puts the track up. I actually did the overdub in one take, and we did one other song, and didn't know if I'd ever even see him again or what would happen with the song.
Now, do you ever get to that spot when you're recording something that you go, that's it, that's going to be a big one, or is it still you have a little bit of trepidation in the back of your mind, going, I don't know?
Well, I don't really feel like I've ever had that moment where I went, oh, that's undeniably a number one or top five or something like that. No, I've never had that.
Now, let's talk about some people that have influenced you in your life. I mean, whether it's in the music business or outside the music business. If you had a young person, you say, well, yeah, this is a turning point for somebody in my life that I need to tell you about. Who would it be?
Well, right at the beginning, of course, everybody was captivated by Elvis, right? Mm-hmm. And then all the stuff that came out after Elvis was, I loved all that early rock and roll stuff. So that was real big for me, and still is. I still think that's rock and roll in its purest form in some sense. And I really was into Chuck Berry, but I think when I got into the Rolling Stones, there was something about the way that those guitar players, Keith and Brian, played that somehow I related to, and I was able to learn a lot by listening to them. And I feel like I made a quantum leap listening to their music, more so than the Beatles and the other English invasion artists and such. And I think that opened me up to the world of blues guitarists. And then I would, graduated into one artist like B.B. King, and then learned all I can from him, and Freddie King and Albert King and Elmore James, and with just, one guy after another. I was just soaking it all up and learning a little bit about what made all those styles great. And so that was kind of like my college of music.
That's very similar to something that Carl Palmer told me. I asked him what his philosophy was with that. He goes, I saw people listen to them play the drums, and I tried to copy them. Okay, I said it wasn't something was innovative. No, I tried to copy them, and obviously it worked out for the guy, right?
Yeah, I mean, the way it is if you can copy something and then just put that into your vocabulary, and then you go on to the next artist, and then you learn to copy a little bit of that. After a while, you don't really sound like any one of those guys in particular. Hopefully, you sound like yourself, because you've have all these influences that go into this gumbo of style.
Oh, so what you're saying is sort of like a melting pot. You're picking a little bit up from this person and that person, and then ultimately you're coming up with something that's unique to you, but is a culmination of other people. Yeah, that's a very that's a very interesting thought. I have this expression: not everybody plays the piano can make music. I mean, it's a talent. I mean, God gave you a talent, and I don't care how many people practice. It was, Vince Lombardi says, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. So yeah. Are you working every day? Are you playing every day? Are you practicing every day still?
I practice and I play for myself every day, and I do a lot of recording at home. So if I have something to record for, whether it's one of my records or I'm doing a session for somebody or I'm writing some new songs, then I'll turn on the recording gear and start to put that stuff down. Otherwise, I love to play in my dining room. That seems to be the room where most of my songs come
in your
from.
dining room.
In my dining room, yeah. I have a wall of guitars in there and a little amp, and I just play in there every day.
Do you have it's got to talk about guitars. Usually guitar players, you have like a billion guitars. Do you have a lot of guitars? I mean, that's a silly question.
I have way too many. Yes.
So these questions are kind of outside the box. Maybe other people would ask you. So what makes a guitar different than another? I mean, because to us lay people, it's an electric guitar. Okay, it's not like it's the shape of the insides of the guitar or whatever. But what makes a guitar different? Why do you go from this guitar to that guitar?
Well, it's kind of like what's the difference between a cool Cadillac and a cool Ford?
Well, there are no cool Ford. Well, I do have
a store and back.
Yeah.
But, like Fender has a completely different sound than Gibson, say. And
Really?
Gibson has a completely different sound than Gretsch. And Gretsch has a completely different sound than Rickenbacker. And slide guitar sounds different than standard guitar. And amplifiers all make all those guitars sound different. And like when you're a professional and you want different sounds, you change guitars to get the different sounds. And some guys stay with one guitar, and that's fine. It's probably a little less complicated. But I also design guitars, and I've had my prototypes made, built, and then I've combined my ideas with the ideas of the Reverend Guitar Company out of Toledo. And so there's been 4 different Rick Veto signature models out through them. That's, that all have different features.
That is fascinating. Now, what made you decide to do that? Was it you couldn't get what you wanted from a store-bought guitar? You just thought it was something kind of neat to do?
More the latter, more that I just wanted something unique to me, to be seen out there with something that nobody else had. Because everybody plays Stratocasters or Les Pauls back then, and for the most part. And I wanted something that looked different and sounded a little different, hopefully. And so that's how that started for me.
Well, I get an education every time I have one of these conversations. It's inconceivable to me that you could tell the difference between a Gretchen and whatever. That's educational. I think a lot of my listeners don't know that either. So let me.
No, I was just going to say, the guitar all comes down to what's called the pickup. Pickup is like a magnetic little oval or rectangular thing with poles on it that are magnets to pick up the vibration of the strings. And each one of those different pickups from the various companies is built a slightly different way from the other, and that results in a different sound. So that's where that comes from. So
the question then becomes, with you playing the guitar, I mean, what is your favorite guitar? What's the quality the guitar has to have that you go, geez, this is the one I'm gonna play most of the time?
That's a good question, man. Because I try to, like people, like when you meet people, you kind of like them, or they become part of your heartfelt group on an individual basis. So that's the way I feel about my guitars. They're friends, and they each have a different quality, and so it'd be really hard for me to pick out.
Yeah.
I have a group that are some of my favorites that I've stayed.
Yeah.
Most of them I've had for at least 30 to 40 years or more.
Well,
I keep going back to.
Well, my dad was a very, very good golfer, and one of the things that he could conceive of that I couldn't perceive is the feel of a particular club in your hands as opposed to another club. Is sort of like that with the guitars? Is one what maybe the sound might be different, but you just like having it in your hands better?
Yes, it sort of inspires confidence, and if it's easy to play or you understand how to get the right sound out of that guitar, then that just makes your job more easy.
We'll be right back to talk more after this. And this is your sport report. The Red Wings are in town Tuesday through Sunday. Of course, Tuesday is 2 for Tuesday, and Wednesday there's a day game at 11:05. I want to go. This is Dom for my friends at Jack Greco Furniture. You drive your car. You live with your furniture. That's why Nina and I buy our furniture locally from Jack Greco. Hey, lots of old name manufacturers of furniture switch to mass production, producing their furniture, well, who knows where. Why settle for that? Jack has quality pieces made by true craftsmen, and if you need a custom piece, Jack can happily do that. End of the season's upon us. Jack has quality outdoor furniture you won't find anywhere else. Go to jackgreco.com for more info. Welcome back. You're listening to the No Nonsense Roundtable. Well, now, of all the people you have played with and whatever, you have to have, I mean, John tells me that you have stories. So I'm going to put you on the spot. You got to give me some stories about some people. I have some great stories on my show. I have one from Ringo Starr and one about Ringo Starr and one about Little Richard and whatever. You have to have come across some characters, and you sound like you might be a little bit of a character yourself. So tell me some stuff along the way that maybe might be a little bit enlightening or entertaining for people.
Well, let's see. You mentioned Little Richard, so let's start there. I got to see Little Richard live in 1965 at a spur-of-the-moment concert that was put on in Wildwood, New Jersey. And my brother and I went, and we were big fans because we had all his 45s. My grandmother had a bar and with a jukebox in it, and we would always get the 45s at the end of the summer.
Okay.
So we always had a great record collection at our house, and so we went to see Little Richard, and it was just fantastic. A mixed crowd. Everybody got along, and everybody was just really digging this. And one of the things that we remembered was his guitar player, and because he was this tall guy, kind of real good looking guy, cool clothes. And he just had a regular guitar that he just flung over from left to right. He was a left-handed player, right? Mm-hmm. So 2 years go by. It went from the summer of 65 to the summer of 67. My friend said, "Hey, have you heard this new guitar player?" "Who?" "Jimi Hendrix."
Oh!
Now, see the picture of the guy, and it's Little Richard's guitar player. We remembered because he was the left-handed guy, and then we found out, yes, he did play for Little Richard. And then to take it a step further, about that was 67, and then so by 74, I got a call from Little Richard asking me to perform with him on the Midnight Special TV show and do a couple weeks of dates. So it came a full circle in that sense.
That's amazing. Now, I've heard, there's these debates about the best guitar player of all time. And I know you're humble enough that you wouldn't say, if I answer the question, you wouldn't say yourself. But Jimi Hendrix, the other one people mention all the time is Eric Clapton.
Uh-huh.
What's your opinion of the two of them compared to one another? It's probably not fair to ask you, but.
No, I mean, you can ask anything. Jimi Hendrix was so cool because he came up on the, if you will, what they call the Chitlin circuit in the R&B circuit.
Yep.
Played with all those people and put a lot of time in, and it wasn't for very much money. Probably got screwed out of a lot of money. Didn't have good, his background was rough, a little bit tough, and he just had that vision, and he wound up being a visionary and a vanguard in creating a sound and a combination of influences that just wasn't like anybody else. There's nobody from England that was going to come out with something that sounded like he did, and he was completely unique individual, and that's why he was the genius he was. Django Reinhardt, he was a genius in the same way. A gypsy, no money, just making up stuff on two, because he could only use 2 of his fingers. Didn't stop him. It was in his heart and soul, and it came out. Like Clapton is a completely different animal because he basically is a guy who listened to a lot of records. I'm not saying he didn't love the people he was listening to, the B.B. Kings and Freddie Kings, and he developed his own style from like we were talking about earlier. He developed his own sound and his own style from an amalgamation of listening to different American blues artists.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what makes those two guys different. Jimmy kind of lived it more.
Well, Jimmy seemed like he was more of a performer too. I mean, he was more engaging than. I mean, Clapton was a performer in a way, but when you see Jimi Hendrix, he's trying to engage the audience someplace where the audience hasn't been before. Now, what is your style? If you had to describe your style of playing a guitar, what would it be?
Well, my style that I've released on record, because I play obviously some different things at home that I haven't released on any records. But the style that I'm noted for is a blues and slide guitar, blues rock style. And, it's very roots American rock and roll with the, very strong blues background.
Well,
kind of thing. Slide is a big part of it.
Well, let me ask you a question. You were talking about your mom and Hawaiian music and everything. I mean, and me being as naive as I am about this, I mean, is that kind of evocative of the slide guitar? You can do things on the slide guitar you can't do on a regular guitar. Is that sort of a part of it or not?
It definitely is. Slide guitar is related to, but a different animal than your standard finger played guitar. Mm-hmm. You usually tune to a chord when you're playing either Hawaiian music or slide guitar music. You don't have to, but you usually tune to a chord and you're playing with a bar or a slide. And so you're gliding between notes instead of the frets, which separate notes from each other. With the slide, you glide between notes as the human voice does. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, there's a certain freedom that you have using a slide. And lately I've been doing a kind of a hybrid style. I didn't create this by any means, but the Indian players in India have an instrument called a sarod. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have any frets. And there's also some other Middle Eastern instruments that are like that. So I have electric guitars that have no frets on it. And it's very, very difficult to play like a violin, but it allows you that capability of gliding between notes, kind of like a slide does.
Yeah, it seems like the Hawaiian music does have that type of quality to it. So okay, so we have one really great story under our belt. Give me another one. Tell me somebody who surprised you the most. I mean, somebody in the business than they were either nicer than you thought, or they were more of a pain that took us. So tell me about somebody we know.
Let's see. Well, I don't know if this is exactly what you're looking for, but again, when we were kids, my mom took us to Steel Pier in Atlantic City. And at the time, for like 75 cents or something admission, you could spend the whole day on Steel Pier. You could see the diving horse and go underwater in this diving bell thing and watch movies and also see the stage show. So the reason that my mom wanted to take us because she was a big fan of, as we all were, of the Everly Brothers.
Oh, yeah.
So that was the first rock and roll show I ever saw that was loud rock and roll music. And I sort of just like, whoa, I want to do that. Yeah. That is the coolest. And so funny enough, later on, I got that gig with Delaney and Bonnie, as I had mentioned to you earlier, the people I had met who kind of advised me to go to Los Angeles. Well, Delaney asked me if I wanted to go on tour. I said yes. And what was the first gig that we played? The same stage in Atlantic City on the Steel Pier.
That's great.
And the first session that I was invited to just come to and observe, not to play on, as it turns out, was an Everly Brothers session in Los Angeles. And I told Phil about seeing him, and he invited me to play on the session, but which I declined because, first of all, there was about 4 guitar players already on the session. He was just being nice, but it was just a coincidence that all those things happened.
Yeah. We'll be right back after this.
The greatest Jeff Beck tribute band ever assembled is taking your tour across America. Celebrate the music of legendary guitarist Jeff Beck, Saturday, April 20th at Fort Hill Performing Arts Center. Led by Grammy-nominated and Boston Music Hall of Fame guitarist Johnny A. Beckola, celebrating the music of Jeff Beck in the near-perfect acoustic setting that is Fort Hill Performing Arts Center in downtown Canandaigua, April 20th. Get your tickets now at forthillpac.com.
Welcome back to the No Nonsense Roundtable. You know what drives me crazy? I'm going to talk about something that just drives me absolutely crazy, is that, you know, the songs, these beautiful songs from the past, and some of them, commercially speaking, are wonderful. Even though I'm not a Chevy guy, Like a Rock, that's great, okay? But then you see these songs now where, you know, it's kidney medication and they're dancing around and they're taking this song from the 60s and it's like, oh my God, I can't get this thing out of my head, please. You know, so, which brings me to my next question. Now, having been a member or a musician in these groups, are you getting, does one at somebody like yourself, you don't have to tell me anything personal, but do you get a cut of the residual of that when they use the song for, like, you know, Chevy or whatever?
Yeah, you get paid when it gets turned into a commercial. You get a check every, you know, I don't know however often, the period is, but they came in for 10 years.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily the person who wrote the song.
No,
it's
they get the lion's share. They get the seven figures.
Yeah. Life is like that. Now, have you written any books? Or are you interested in? A lot of people in your line of work, do that. Do something for a legacy.
Well, no, I haven't written a book. I've started writing some of these stories, that a couple of which I touched on with you here, but writing about myself I find to be very difficult. I would probably do a lot better if I collaborated with somebody who could ask me questions with the tape recorder running, and I could do that and have him organize it. Maybe I'll do that someday.
Well, I'm surprised that's what I'm doing now. I found somebody who's a former reporter for the local paper, and she and I'm dictating to her, and we're writing a book about how to buy a car and not get screwed.
Okay, good idea.
I think I can make a couple of bucks with that. I worked for Chrysler for 17 years, and I had my dealership for 26 years. That's how old I am. And there's a lot of things that you need to know that you just don't know.
Right, exactly.
So, this anthology of stories, if you're thinking that you might be able to have an anthology of stories, here's one. Give me a Fleetwood Mac story. I mean, it seems like if you read anything about Fleetwood Mac, there was the band itself had some angst between it or not, or I mean, you being there, you tell me, or was that before your time with them?
Well, the reason I joined the group was because of the angst between Stevie and Lindsay, which came to a head. Apparently, I wasn't there, but it's in mixed books, so I'm not talking out of school. It was a big fight, and it got physical, and he had to go. And so, but I was never around the two of them together much, you know.
Yeah.
But everybody else got along just great, and there was a healthy competition, I think, probably between Stevie and Christine, both being the ladies of the group, but I don't think it was in any way a negative thing. It's like Paul McCartney and John Lennon. They had a healthy competition to come up with great songs to get on the record, that kind of thing. I was into Fleetwood Mac from the 60s version, the late 60s. Peter Green, the guitar player, put that group together. That was Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac, and it was a blues rock band. And having seen him around the same time I saw Jimi Hendrix, he was just as amazing in his own way as was Jimmy. And so when Mick and I got together at a recording session one day, I think it was talking about those old days and playing those old songs together at one of my shows, that when the guitar chair came available, I was the first one he called. And so it's interesting how it came again a full circle.
What now? What group would you say was just the most enjoyable for it? Well, let's put it this way: what group did you play with that it was the least stressful?
The least stressful?
Yeah, the least stressful. Who did you work with? Now, it had to be in your business. Some of the groups that you work for was, it's either the internal politics or this or your schedule or whatever. And there's got to be other places that you've been, people that you've been associated with that have, just been like family, like a joy or whatever. I mean, am I touching on anything that's actually,
well, I have really, some people, some guys, some musicians, they are very comfortable with the term sideman, and I never was, because all the gigs I had, they were the kind of gigs where you contributed something to that person's music very creatively, and I was never made to feel. I only did one gig, and I won't say with who, where I felt like I got to get out of here. This is a sideman gig, and I don't belong here. Mm-hmm. But like playing with somebody like Jackson Browne or Bonnie Raitt, you contributed to their music in the studio, and when you went on the road, you felt like you were in a band. You didn't feel like you were a sideman. So I never really felt that I had a high pressure gig. The only high pressure gig I ever do are my own, because
you put pressure on yourself.
When my name's up there, I worry about it all day long until the moment I get on stage, and then I just start having fun.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I was had a talk with somebody a while back, and we were talking about their group, and I said, well, I said, well, you will do something together. You want to bring your guys over. He goes, no. We're friendly, but we're not friends. These are the guys that work for me. And I was like, oh, okay. There's nothing.
Well, there is that.
Yeah, there's nothing. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's
nothing wrong with that, and that does exist, and it's probably the way it should be. There's that saying that familiarity breeds contempt. So you don't want to get too close to people unless there's one person maybe that is your consigliere or whatever, But otherwise, it's good to be friendly, but not take it any further than that. Because after all, at the end of the day, it's a job. They're paying you. And, in Fleetwood Mac, I was a member. I wasn't being paid. I was a member. But my gigs prior to that were paying jobs.
Let's do a little retail then. Let's tell people what your website is and how to get your work. Sure. And whatever. I'm going to let you go right ahead. Go and give us the retail pitch.
All right. Well, you can always go to Blue Heart Records, and they'll have information on Cadillac Man there. And I'm sure that my website guy is going to finish updating my website, which is www.rickveto.com, and that'll have information on the new record. And right into your DJs if you like the record, and have them play it. And hopefully we'll get to your town before you know it.
Rick, well, it's been a delightful conversation with you. And everybody go to rickveto.com or Blue Heart. Is Blue Heart Records? Is that what it is? Blue Heart Records. BlueHeartRecords.com and get his new CD. And we look forward to talking to you sometime in the future again. And that's the show for today, folks. Next week, right here, same time, same place, is the No Nonsense Roundtable.
Thanks for listening. Tune in every weekend from 10 to 11. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll make more.